Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Generic Garage. On today's episode, we need to fix a few things, and then we can fire up the Ranger. Number one on the list is the fuel hoses. If you watched the last video, we had a leak, well, probably a couple of leaks, because the braided stainless rubber line that we had, I guess, just kind of deteriorated. Next on the list would be fixing the oil pan leak. You can see right here, it kind of looks like a little pinhole right where the weld is on that oil pan. And I think I can fit the MIG welder up there and just zap it real quick with a little bead and hopefully plug up that hole. There's a few other small things I didn't mention on the last video that we need to address. I'll do my best to get those done today, but the main goal is to get the Ranger fired up. I'd like to take it around the block. Stay tuned. All right, here is the old style stainless rubber hose that I was talking about that we use for our fuel lines. The fuel line's a little less than a year old, so I'm actually surprised that the rubber inside gave out and started cracking and creating pinhole leaks. This hose is PTFE on the inside. You might know it as Teflon. It's then wrapped with some stainless steel braid and then some nylon braid on the outside. For anyone that's tried to assemble these hoses, you know that you have to compress this stainless mesh sheathing around the rubber hose, and it's really difficult, and you poke your fingers, and getting that fitting on there can be one heck of a time. But with the new stuff that we've got, this PTFE nylon stainless combo, you can tape up the end, slide your collar on, remove the tape, put your fitting on, and then slide the collar up around the sheathing, which actually compresses it for you, and then you simply thread the collar on to the fitting. So assembling these hoses is actually going to be much easier. On top of that, they were cheaper, and the PTFE inside of these hoses is going to last much longer than the rubber. So now we just need to get the tank dropped and then disconnect our old hoses, measure out the new hoses, put the fittings on, and install the new hoses, and our fuel problem should be solved. After that, we'll tackle that oil pan. Well, there you have it, everyone. That is one problem fixed. The fuel line should be good to go. I put the tank back up in there, turned on the fuel pump, and checked to make sure that there was no issues, no leaks or anything like that, and that we were getting up to pressure. So far, so good. That's $200 worth of hoses and fittings out and $150 worth of new hoses and fittings in. Like I said, we went from rubber to Teflon, and this should be a lot better. So the next step is to, of course, try to fix that little oil leak. So I'm gonna get that welder out there and see if I can't fit this little MIG handle up in there and just try to put a little bit of a bead on it. And hopefully that'll keep it from leaking anymore. Well, it's not the cleanest weld ever, but I think it'll hold. I drained some oil, cleaned that area up a bit with the Dremel, and then welded it and put the oil back in, and it doesn't seem to be leaking yet. I guess we'll find out as soon as we get the motor started. That was a challenge. The other issue that I hadn't mentioned yet was that this hose is gonna hit this pulley of the alternator. I've got this little thing just kind of sitting in here, keeping that hose off of the alternator for now, but I'm gonna have to do something about this port here. I'm gonna have to, like, I don't know, pie cut it, bend it up, and then re-TIG it. Like, I need to find somebody with a TIG to help me do that. Maybe when we go to the exhaust shop, they can take a look at it. The only other issue that I really wanted to try to get straightened out was back underneath the car. The motor's not sitting perfectly straight in there. It could be picked up on this side a little bit, you know, kind of tilted that way. But more importantly, it's kind of sitting at an angle towards the back driver's side. So I want to try to turn it a bit. But the thing that's preventing me from doing that is the modified transmission crossmember. I need to slot these holes a little bit more this direction, going that way, so that the transmission can kind of pull this way a little bit more. And I think that'll even things out a bit and make it so that the two-piece drive shaft isn't sitting at such a weird, funky angle. The only issue I foresee is that if I turn the motor that way a little bit, our clearance in there is going to get real tight where our exhaust is. So might have to play with that a little bit, maybe bring the passenger side forward just a bit and the driver's side back just a bit. Not exactly sure, but technically that can wait for another day. I want to get this motor fired up. Okay, so I just reprogrammed it, and I think the issue that we had the entire time was that the idle screw wasn't turned up far enough, so we weren't getting enough air into the motor. Now we can actually start it. So let's give it a shot again and see if it'll fire up. It's going to be a little loud, so if you have headphones on or something, turn down your speakers. This thing's lumpy and loud. That is a rowdy cam. It's running super rich right now. We got to give the computer a little bit of time to figure it out. I need to tighten down the transmission crossmember bolts and a couple other bolts and make sure everything's good to go. Get those fans wired up real quick. And then I think we can take it for a test drive. I just double checked the oil pan and it doesn't seem to be leaking. So I think we're gonna be okay. You can hear the computer trying to figure out what the hell is going on with the motor. So we probably need to give it a little bit more time, but before we can idle this much longer, I really need to hook up those fans. So let's get that taken care of. Okay, it has been more than a year since the Ranger has been driven, and we're going to attempt to do that now. Let's hope she fires up and can take a lap around the neighborhood. Oh, come on. cow. Okay, well, for one, it's lumpy, real lumpy. Like the truck sits here and it vibrates. I can feel there's a lot more power in it, like just going up and down the street real quick. We need to get exhaust on this thing. I am definitely gonna upset some people if I drive this much more around the neighborhood. So I think on the next video, we'll head over to the exhaust shop and see if they can't get us set up. I don't know if we have to run catalytic converters or not. I'll have to look into that. Either way, I'm gonna try to do 3-inch exhaust all the way back. I'll have to get new mufflers because the old setup was on 2.5-inch or something. But it drove. It made it around the neighborhood, guys. I'm so excited. I need to check a couple of things, make sure nothing's leaking after all that. One thing I did not really like all that much was, okay, so with this engine, there's gonna be a lot less vacuum, which means that my power brakes aren't gonna be nearly as effective because of the lower vacuum. So I really have to get on these brakes to stop the truck. It's almost like having manual brakes. So maybe we'll look into getting some sort of vacuum pump or something to help with that. Or maybe we'll just stick with it and I'll just have to man up and stomp on the brakes when I need to. Oh, crud. Oh man, y'all know what that is. That's oil. Slowly leaking. Looking at the back of the oil pan is clean, which can only mean that that's a rear main leak and it's dripping from the inspection plate on the transmission. That is the last seal on an engine you ever want leaking right there, is that rear main. That's just because you have to pull the entire motor apart. Well, not apart, you have to take the engine out of the car in order to do that. Maybe I could drop the transmission. Ugh. Whatever, today was a big success. We got it running. I drove it around the neighborhood. I am so excited. Let's go get exhaust on it and not worry too much about the oil leak. We'll just keep checking to make sure we have enough oil in the thing. And once we get it quieted up a bit and get it tuned a bit, we'll look into that rear main and see what's going on. But I'm getting 75, 80 PSI oil pressure. This thing is, and that's at temp, that's not like cold. So we got plenty of oil pressure for this motor. It's interesting when it revs up, it's a hard rev up and then it just kind of swings back down. Super easy, super nice. So, all right. Well guys, that is gonna do it for today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. We finally got the truck running. I know I said it was gonna happen a lot sooner than it did. Well, when we come back next time, we'll get exhaust on the truck. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you to everybody who's been subscribing, liking. Leave me a comment on the video. Tell me what you think. Just say anything. I really don't care what it is. I'll respond to it, I promise. And if you like what you saw, please consider subscribing. I will catch y'all on the next video. Until then, y'all stay safe, have a great week, and bye.